September 8th, just after 4:30 p.m. This is a regular meeting of the Public Schools Board of Education, and we do have an executive session scheduled at the beginning. So we will start, as we always do, with the Pledge of Allegiance and salute to the New Mexico flag in English and in Spanish, and then our acknowledgement of tribal land. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Pueblo de Unidad a la bandera de los Estados Unidos de América y a la república que representa una nación bajo Dios, indivisible, con libertad y justicia para todos. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, and the symbol of friendship among united cultures. Saludo la bandera de los Estados de Nuevo México, y simbología de amistad perfecta entre culturas unidas. Any acknowledgement of tribal land? We acknowledge that our Board of Education meeting is taking place on occupied indigenous land. We acknowledge the Tesuque Pueblo lands and other tribal lands on which we stand. We honor these people, past, present, and future. We acknowledge the history and ongoing colonization of where we are sitting right now in New Mexico and in our country. We acknowledge our own place in the story of colonization. Thank you very much. We are on to approval of the agenda. Superintendent, do we need any changes?
We do have one change tonight, President Noble. We asked to remove item C from executive session.
Okay, thank you very much. I will go ahead and move approval of the agenda, leaving off item C on Roman numeral 2, the discussion of the purchase, acquisition, or disposal of real property.
Second.
Second from Vice President Bozay. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the agenda as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or otherwise? Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to executive session. Secretary Anderson, this is usually your job, or your new job.
I move that we move into executive session to discuss item A, threatened or pending litigation, item B, collective bargaining, not item C. Is there anything else?
That was perfect.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second from Vice President Bozay. All those in favor of the motion to move into executive session to discuss the items listed, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or otherwise? Okay, we will be in executive session, returning on or about 5:30 for the rest of our meeting. Thank you.
So, let me tell you. Let me,
Okay, it's 5:30 now, according to my clock here. So we will go ahead and come back from executive session. Secretary Anderson.
I would like to make a motion to come back from executive session where we discussed threatened or pending litigation and collective bargaining. No action was taken.
Thank you. I'll second that motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor of coming back from executive session say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or otherwise? All right, thank you very much, and welcome, everybody. It's really good to see you. It's been a long time since we've had this many humans in the room. It's wonderful. We'll move on to Roman numeral 3, introduction of interpreter. Superintendent.
Thank you, Board President Noble, and again, welcome back. It is great to see everybody. Deputy Superintendent Romero, please.
Para asistencia de traducción en español, el señor Benji Lucero te ayudará.
Thank you very much, Deputy Superintendent. Moving on to Roman numeral 4, our school board showcase. And again, thank you all for being here, and to everybody who made it possible for you to be here. We're really happy to see you. We will start tonight with the Mandela International Magnet School. Superintendent.
Thank you, Board President Noble. And with introductions tonight is Assistant Superintendent Michael Hagley.
Good evening, Board President Noble, members of the board, Superintendent Chavez. I would like to introduce you to Principal Randy Grillo, Principal at Mandela International Magnet School.
Welcome, Principal Grillo.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, Board President Noble, members of the board, Superintendent Chavez. And members of the cabinet. It's really a distinct pleasure of mine to be able to introduce Miss Fume Sai, our Mandarin teacher. We have one of perhaps the only Mandarin program in the state. There might be one other, I think, in Las Cruces. I'm not sure, but I taught Spanish for 25 years, so I've seen foreign language teachers a lot over a quarter of a century, and Miss Sai is one of, if not the top, language acquisition teacher that I've seen in all my years. And the way that she brings culture, she brings the language, and she creates students that love to learn. And so very humble, but I'm very proud to introduce Miss Fume Sai.
And Mr. Grillo, correct me if I'm wrong, she was awarded Teachers Who Inspire by Pi last year, correct?
Welcome.
Thank you. Nervous. Okay. Board President Noble, members of the board, Superintendent Chavez, and all the cabinet members. My name is Fume Cai. It's my honor to present the Mandela Chinese program. This is the only such program in the Santa Fe Public Schools. We started our program in 2014 when Mandela was established. I teach the language and the culture of the target language, including singing, dancing, making Chinese dumplings, playing mahjong, field trips, and holiday celebrations, such as Chinese New Year. To reinforce the learning of the target language, I have taken students to Taiwan, where I'm from. Our students stay in the home of a same-age student and attend school with that host student during our spring break. And we do sightseeing trips in Taiwan too. In March 2020, 2 of my seniors earned their bilingual seal. One of them even earned a trilingual seal. That means English, Spanish, and Chinese. In 2021, one student earned her bilingual seal, and in 2022, one student earned her bilingual seal as well. And none of them had to take a private lesson to earn their bilingual seal or trilingual seal. All they had to do was attend school regularly. And of course, they had to willingly do the hard work, students, okay? So my seniors also did well to earn their IB diploma or IB certificate. Now, some of my students are going to perform a dance. Students, time for you to show up, okay?
job. Thank you all so much. That was wonderful. And I honestly think it might be the first time we've had a dance here at the school board showcase. So thank you for, yes, more of that, please. Really appreciate it. And congratulations to all of you for your work in the Mandarin program and learning about Chinese culture. Thank you all very much. Okay, our next school board showcase is the Santa Fe High School Choir Superintendent.
Thank you, Board President Noble. And with us tonight is our Director of Music, Miss April Pickrell.
Great to see you in person, Ms. Pickrell.
A funny story, real quick. I lived in China for 2 years before I came here, and every morning I'd get up and there'd be a whole bunch of people in the park doing a dance very similar to you. Every morning they'd get up really early and they'd all dance together. It just reminded me of that. So that was a great job, guys. Thank you. Good evening. Thank you so much for inviting us to perform for you. Caleb Heaton is the choral director at Santa Fe High School and the PLC leader of the choral programs in Santa Fe Public Schools. He has a bachelor's of music from Concordia College in Moorhead, Minnesota. After graduating in 2017, he moved to Santa Fe and started his formal teaching career at Ortiz Middle School. His baritone voice has been featured many times in the last several years by the Sangre de Cristo Chorale Solo Works, many shows with Tri-M, and the Santa Fe Symphony Chorus. We appreciate all of your support and dedication to music education in Santa Fe Public Schools. Tonight, we present the Santa Fe High School Advanced Mixed Choir. They will perform the national anthem, so please stand. Thank you so much.
That was beautiful, you all. Thank you for sharing your voices with us. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for bringing us song and dance tonight. It was really lovely. Okay, moving on to Roman numeral 5, our public forum. Superintendent.
Thank you, Board President Noble. Taking us through public forum tonight is our Public Information Officer, Mr. Cody Donarski. And it looks like somebody is signing up. We also had a few submissions online. And just to note, we did add a phone number for those that want to call in. So it's on your agenda and it will remain there.
Thank you very much. We'll let you rest after this, Mr. Donarski.
Someone left their lip gloss behind, so I wanted to make sure they didn't forget that. All right. Board President, members of the board, Superintendent Chavez, there are 6 people signed up for public forum comment tonight. 5 are via email, 1 is in person. So we will start with in person. I would like to bring up Miss Stacy Burke.
Hello. Hello, President Noble and members of the board and Superintendent Chavez. I teach in Santa Fe Public Schools, 4th grade. We just had our fiesta visit today, and I would like to ask the board, please revisit the idea of whether or not it's appropriate to have the Fiestas Council visit our Santa Fe Public Schools, even just in 4th grade. I believe that there are probably better ways to help our students learn the importance and value and beauty of Hispanic culture within our city's history and just in general than bringing a very exciting and fun event to the school, but that also, I think, can cause some really hard feelings for some of my Native students and just other students in general. As we know, history is very complicated, and I think that there are better ways to appropriately address how we want to celebrate the heritage, the multicultural heritage that is Santa Fe, rather than bringing in people portraying Don Diego de Vargas and the court to our schools. One of my students today was so excited because I think maybe an uncle was portraying Don Diego de Vargas, and she was so excited. And of course, I'm excited for her. That's awesome. That's amazing. And at the same time, I had Native students whose families felt like that they really needed to pull them out of school today rather than have that there. So I know it's a complicated issue. I am excited for Santa Fe Fiestas in the public forum. I just would like to request that the board seriously revisit the idea of whether or not it is appropriate to bring the court specifically into our public schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Board President, I forgot to read the ground rules. Would you like me to read them before I start with the emails?
No.
Okay.
I don't think we need to hear them for the emails.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just want to make sure. So the first email is from Sawyer Muller. He said, "Why are hats banned from school? I asked my teachers, my principal, and they all don't know why hats are banned from school. I'm done being told to take my hat off in the classroom when it is part of my identity and no one can give me a reason." The next comment is from Jill St. Thomas. I would like to address the board about a proposal to enlist the Blue Bus system into the high school transport system for late buses, enabling students without economic or parental resources to participate in after-school activities and also inspire our youth to take advantage of eco-friendly mass transit. I have a proposal with Representative Matthew McQueen, who has reached out to the Blue Bus system. I would like the board to discuss and review the feasibility of this program. I would also like to propose an environmental renovation of Santa Fe High School by adding a water feature and mature trees and student-tended gardens, as well as redesigning several basement classrooms with NM nature themes and off-swing offering swings, skate parks, scooters, and balls at recess and free periods, along with outdoor sitting areas in a pilot attempt to calm students and create a safe and comforting environment for staff and students to thrive. I have a presentation on mental health and joy levels for youth affected by nature surroundings. With historic mental health issues running rampant in our schools, we must redesign safe and nurturing spaces for our young adults. The next comment is from Joe Christian. Timer up. This one's a little longer. I'm writing to you today from a place of deep concern and sorrow as a Santa Fe parent, a youth services provider, a teacher, and a community member. I've been contacted by numerous parents in the past few days with the disturbing information that although our city has ended the aberrant practice of the entrada on the plaza as part of our Fiesta weekend, Santa Fe Public Schools has not taken the opportunity to end the practice of Fiesta Council visits in our school. How is this possible, and what can be done to change the situation? For my own children, both of whom have indigenous ancestry and attended Santa Fe Public Schools, it is too late. I know well firsthand the historic and emotional triage of our family had to engage in to counter these experiences, and I'm hoping to work towards ending the practice which so blatantly glorifies conquest and genocide. I see in the superintendent's letter from 2018 that this is a compromise at the current time and that you acknowledge that this practice is upsetting to members of the community. What progress has been made in the past 4 years to move beyond the temporary compromise? How is it considered sensitive to include this practice when your goal is to have every student feel respected and valued? New Mexicans have so much rich history to be proud of, real history that crosses and mixes races and cultures in powerful and life-affirming ways, as well as difficult and painful history that needs to be taught with care and awareness. I can't believe we can't fulfill a strong New Mexico history curriculum that respects all of our students without literally dressing up and celebrate genocide. I personally know many indigenous families and youth for whom this is a harmful practice that undermines their sense of self-worth and belonging and upholds systems of oppression. Why have their voices not been heard? I also know that they have tried attending school board meetings in the past only to be violently harassed and followed as they leave. I am sure you'll agree that this is highly problematic and must be addressed so that all parents can access, speak to, and feel represented by our school board. Please advise me how I can move forward to right the horrific harm being committed in our public schools today and ongoing years to come. Thank you for your consideration. And before I forget, I'm going to grab a tissue really quick. The next public forum comment is from Shandine Wood. I would like the following to be submitted as a part of the meeting minutes for today's Santa Fe Public School Board of Education regular meeting. Our children did not attend school today because I feel that this was one way that we can protect our children. The main reason we withheld them today is because of the Fiesta's representatives that attended their school and the historical cultural implications of what this group and their actions mean for the local indigenous community, my family included. There's already a constant anxiety regarding what our children will learn about themselves from something they see or hear about Indians, and protecting them from this is both mentally and emotionally exhausting. This is my hope that our children will not have to endure another Thanksgiving that shows a gross misrepresentation of history. It is our duty to make sure that history does not repeat itself with how they are represented and misrepresented. The truth of what happened in New Mexico when the conquistadors came back after the Pueblo Revolt in 1680 was not bloodless. There was no pageantry of queens and princesses. Blood was shed, young Pueblo girls and boys were kidnapped, raped, and many others tortured and killed. The Spanish and Anglo colonizers, although their conquests have massacred and assimilated thousands upon thousands of young indigenous children all throughout America, you may recall that the Pope himself apologized for the massacre of known hundreds of indigenous children in what is now Canada and the Catholic school system. The Southwest experienced similar trauma that is taught from indigenous mothers onto their children as a cultural defense mechanism. Unfortunately, we still have to teach our children about this. As an education system, I would think that the onus is upon you to educate the youth about the truth of what happened, what the colonizers did in order to colonize the Southwest, not to promote an inaccurate history. I also appreciate that we live in a community community, and I feel it is my duty to let you know how I feel about the actions the school decides to take. Dissent is necessary for a community to be healthy and thrive, and diversity is necessary for a community to sustain, and both need to be respected and supported. It is my hope that we can look past our own beliefs and personal insecurities and come at this with an open mind and a strong heart, because these are not easy conversations that need to happen. Anything worthwhile is never easy. The last public forum comment is Karen Bueller. I am concerned that by allowing the Fiesta Court in public schools, our school district promotes the notion that killing and maiming Native Americans should be applauded and celebrated year after year. Please stop this practice. If families want to celebrate Fiesta, they can do it downtown, not in publicly funded schools. And that concludes public forum for tonight.
Thank you very much, Mr. Donarski. And to everyone who wrote in or came in person. Is there anyone here who would like to speak at public forum who didn't get a chance to sign up? Okay, seeing none, we will move on. Thanks again.
Thank you.
We're at Roman numeral 6, our union update, and NEA President Grace Mayer is here. Great to see you.
Good evening. I'm Grace Mayer, NEA Santa Fe President and art teacher at Milagro Middle School. First, I'd like to welcome our new board member, Abeta. Nice to meet you. I'm hopeful that we can be in touch and meet privately and talk about some of the issues that our membership would like to sort of bring to your attention as a new member of the board. So I'm going to reach out to you and try to set up some meeting. There's a couple of issues I'd like to discuss this evening. I handed you all a press release from NEA New Mexico President Mary Parr Sanchez, and I want to read parts of it to you because I'm aware that in the last board meeting you all passed a board policy around gun safety or sensible gun reform, or I believe you passed it, right? So NEA New Mexico Board, Executive Board has also come out publicly with a statement regarding gun violence. So this is from Mary Parr Sanchez. Another day in the United States, another news cycle. So quickly our societal focus shifts to a fresh outrage, to the next topic of dinner table discussion, and the horrors of the slaughter of children and teachers in Uvalde, Texas on May 24th, 2022, are fading, returning to the place in our collective awareness where Columbine, Sandy Hook, and Parkland also lie dormant. As a mother of 4, a middle school teacher for 25 years, and now the president of the organization that represents thousands of educators across the state of New Mexico, however, I want us to think deeply about the trauma that we are inflicting on our children with the ineffectual policies that keep automatic weapons in the hands of Americans. Is it any wonder that trained, armed law enforcement officers don't want to rush into classrooms where in a matter of seconds, children are so mutilated that they can't be identified? But it's another day in the United States, another news cycle, and yet we can't pretend Uvalde didn't change us. We can't dismiss the fears of parents and teachers purchasing Kevlar backpacks and active shooter door locks as part of their back-to-school shopping. We can't stand idly by as police officers fill our schools and unlocked school doors become national talking points, while the true source of this crisis goes largely unaddressed. Something must be done. On August 22nd, the National Education Association of New Mexico Board of Directors unanimously approved a gun policy statement that calls for the rapid action to support a school environment where all students and educators feel safe. The board states that NEA New Mexico unequivocally supports a state and national ban on the sale and possession of automatic and assault-style weapons. NEA New Mexico strongly supports a universal and uniform system of background checks for all gun sales. The board references reports from the New England Journal of Medicine showing that gun violence is now the leading cause of death among children and adolescents, and how from 2019 to 2020, the relative increase in the rate of firearm-related deaths of all types, suicide, homicide, unintentional, and undetermined, among children and adolescents was 29.5%, more than twice as high as the relative increase in the general population. The board also wishes to acknowledge the disparate impact of gun violence on students and communities of color. We know that for many students of color, more police patrolling their school hallways does not feel like security. It simply adds to their fear of discrimination and brutality in what should be a safe place. In its closing sentence, the board states, "We will hold elected officials accountable for putting an end to gun violence, and we will. NEA New Mexico demands action now. New Mexico educators call on our policymakers to take bold action to end this crisis and protect our students and communities." According to the recent polls by Gallup, Pew, and YouGov, there is an overwhelming mandate from the American people to pass strong gun control legislation. 55% of Americans believe that there should be a total ban on the manufacture, possession, and sale of automatic and assault-style weapons. And there already is in states like California, New Jersey, and Connecticut. As one board member stated, "I am a hunter, and I wholeheartedly support this policy because you do not need an AR-15 to hunt deer." Strong gun control laws are just common sense. There is no time to waste. New Mexico policy makers must act now to protect our students and our teachers. We also, NEA New Mexico also put out a new survey, our statewide priority survey that went out to our staff and our members. Many of the topics that are included in the survey are questions that range about adequate school staffing, prep time, working conditions, which are student learning conditions, whether or not New Mexico should provide additional funding to cover 80% of the cost of employee health care, which we'll be talking about more as we move towards, the legislative session. Questions also include how they believe the local districts use federal COVID relief funds. I'm happy to say that we were used as an example of the positive ways to use relief funds. And I'm really hopeful that we are looked at as a model district for how we spent and utilized those resources. We're asked questions regarding mental health impacts of the pandemic, what the mental health impacts were on students and staff, because we really need to sort of focus on healthy environments for our staff and our teachers as well as our students. Visions of the future in terms of community schools and whether or not they would be interested in engaging in that. Again, common sense gun control policies. Housing costs, increased housing costs, and homelessness among our youth and our staff. And also other additional questions that we hope to get this survey completed in the next month so that we can present to the public and hopefully the board to act on some of those issues directly, as you guys have been very attentive to those concerns from our members. And hopefully our legislature will also listen to some of those concerns. There's some other issues regarding extended learning, but mostly I think it's more about how do we encourage alternative ways of teaching and learning in environments that students want to be in instead of just extending the calendar. And we've done that as a district already and tried to push out, I think, creative ways to use our resources to do that. So I'm really happy that we are, again, at the forefront of some of these ideas as a district, and that we can hopefully come together collaboratively and push these things out to our legislature and our governor. Another issue I wanted to discuss a few things regarding our the New Mexico Administrative Code. And I don't know if, I'm sure you haven't read through it as much as I have, or probably the superintendent. But there's many things that are outlined in there, including what the roles and responsibilities are for teachers, but also students. And one of the main focuses of some of the administrative code is to outline the parameters of what our jobs are, what our responsibilities are. And our primary job is to teach, to educate, and to make sure that kids are getting instruction that meets the standards of the state of New Mexico. We are not in a position to provide the catch-all for families in all different ways. We have counselors, we have food programs, we have outreach, we have after-school programs. But in terms of, I want to ask the board to help, and the community to think about some of the changes in our schedules and make sure that they're not dropping off students too early at the school buildings, because there is not adequate staff to make sure that they're safe. And it's not part of our responsibility to do multiple duties throughout a day. It should be the least of our concern, and unfortunately, it's become like priorities for some, I wouldn't say upper administration, but I think site administration get overly caught up on what parents are bringing to them. And there's this sort of push in a direction to say, okay, well, we'll exceed our contract and do that. Oh, okay, we'll exceed our contract and do that, and we'll do that. From a perspective of an educator, I want you to know that it feels very disrespectful of the community to ask that of us. I don't come early to work to stand out in a parking lot to try to tell adults how to behave and how to drive properly. It's not something I ever decided I wanted to do. My goal is to educate students and to prepare for the lessons and to have an impactful day for them and a satisfying day for me. So I'm asking that parents, maybe you can volunteer, maybe you can figure out some other ways to get your students there, carpool, maybe have a neighborhood walk to school day. Ask a volunteer to help, manage that. Or, better yet, put them on the bus. We need to start, putting students back on the buses so that they arrive at the appropriate time. But also, I just think that, we have way too much going on to have just throngs of parents dropping off kids in the middle of, the streets are backed up. There's all kinds of issues with it. And I think as a community, we need to get a grip and either decide to put our children on the bus or have them walk. And I can tell you, as a walker in New York for my whole career, because they didn't, once you're a mile and a half out, that's it. You didn't get a bus. And so some of our kids literally get picked up, and they live like across the street. And I'm like, okay, I can understand little ones, but we maybe create a buddy system, figure some things out. But I just want the board and the cabinet and also our public to understand that we'd love to have you volunteer those bus duties or those parent pickups, because maybe you will have more influence over the parents because you're a parent. Because sometimes when we go talk to them, it's, we don't really get the warm and fuzzy feeling that you might. But so I know I'm making light of it, but it does impact people's, well-being at work. And they don't want to be pressured or guilted into, those kinds of situations. So we're trying to build as a district a more cohesive kind of start and end time. And we've done that through discussions with the superintendent and the cabinet about like how do we make, the workday, work around the instructional minutes for the students. And also, how do we provide that level of interaction, but, basically the whole issue of making sure students get to school safely, as far as I'm concerned, is to feel confident that the bus drivers will pick your child up and transport them safely and back to the bus stop or home. And I have confidence in our bus drivers to do that. And so anything you can do to help out in that area would be greatly appreciated. I think I'm going to end there. Just the last thing I wanted to mention was that we have been dealing with some student nutrition pay issues and other issues around their contracts, and I think we've gotten most of that resolved, and tomorrow we'll have a meeting with them, and hopefully that most of that will be settled and we'll move forward from there. But I want to thank the superintendent and for working on that with me. It's been a lot in the last month, but our workers are excited about resolving those issues for themselves as well. And our new nutrition leads are excited about, making sure that they leave, a lot of them who approached you to be part of the union and had this, public sort of outreach, really, more than anything, wanted to be acknowledged and respected for the work that they do. And I think that this resolution to this grievance and their discussion is going to make them feel confident that they were heard and were listened to, and that we're treating them with the dignity and respect that they deserve. So I thank you, Superintendent. That is all.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the work you do on behalf of so many workers. Okay, moving on to board announcements and follow-up. Are there any announcements from the board?
Madam President.
Go ahead, Vice President.
Thank you. I can give a brief update on the CRC meeting that we had last week. It was quite a long and full discussion about the future home of Mandela. This is an ongoing project that the CRC is working on, and they are meeting again next week and hope to bring forward some recommendations after that meeting.
Thank you very much. Secretary Anderson, do you want to add anything?
I was very sick and therefore did not attend, but I am on a lot of healing medication right now, and therefore I'll complete my antibiotics before the next meeting, so I'll be there.
All right. Well, in that spirit, an update on the audit committee. I think we had an incredibly productive meeting today, and Board Member Abeta can fill in any pieces that I miss. It was his first meeting, but we even had compliments on the progress we're making, and are well on the way to completing our next audit as it's due, which is for the 2022 school year, so the fiscal year that ended June 30th. And so lots of thanks to our finance director and the superintendent and his team and everybody who is doing that work. It's been a lot, and thanks to the members of our audit committee for their volunteer service. And I think that relatively, okay, I'm getting a nod from board member Abeta. I think that covers it for our board members who weren't in the audit committee, but we're on good track to both remedy some of the issues in previous audits and do the new audit in, I think, a pretty expeditious way. So again, thanks to our finance director and everyone in the team who does that work on top of everything else that keeps schools running. Any other board announcements and
Board
follow-up?
President Noble.
Yeah, go ahead, board member, or Secretary Anderson.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to acknowledge that I attended NAVA's open house last night and was incredibly impressed with the dedication of all of the educators and the engagement of the family. And I particularly wanted to note that Laura Mayo Rodriguez is running an incredible program called Innovation Nation. It's just a very cool computer science program that has kids doing not only coding on their computers, but also hands-on building with blocks. And there were like very large pieces of wood, and it was just, I wanted to stay there forever. So I know that's happening throughout the district. I'm really excited. I'm going to be visiting all of all of the schools that I represent over the next 2 weeks, and I can't wait to report back on all of the great things that I'm seeing.
Wonderful, thank you. Dr. Gonzalez.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Chavez, I am on the school board association, the State School Board Association, and they are just forming a legislative committee, which I will be part of. And we will be reviewing all of the resolutions that all the boards turned in and come up with a full recommendation to all the boards. And sometime in December, I believe. So, thank you.
Excellent, thank you very much. Board member Abeta.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to thank Deputy Superintendent Romero for the tours of the schools in my district the last couple of weeks. I want to acknowledge Felicia Sena, the principal at Ortiz, Trish Garrity, Nino Otero, Loretta Booker, Ramirez Thomas, Jamie Holiday from Capitol, Dolores Pacheco at Sweeney, Fernando Morales at Cesar Chavez, and Brittany Behena Griffin at the NYE. The visits were really something else, and I was just so impressed by the principals, the students, the staff that I met, and I just, again, thank you, Deputy Superintendent, for taking the time and giving me the tour and answering all my questions. And it was just, if you haven't done it recently, I suggest that you should, because it's very inspiring, and just, it makes you so proud to be a board member and to be able to represent those schools and those students and teachers. So thank you.
Great stuff, thank you very much. I also just want to say thanks to the superintendent and anyone who was involved in solving the football game location issue. That was, I think, very important to the community, so we appreciate the conflict resolution there. Any other board announcements or updates? Okay, we'll move on to superintendent announcements and follow-up.
Thank you, Board President Noble, members of the board. I have a lot of great announcements tonight. Again, we did have our proficiency scores released, the state data, and our data does show that we're aligned with the state growth, but we're also doing a deeper analysis, and it does show that students who are chronically absent, they are not as proficient as those that are in attendance on a daily basis. I think it's common sense, but when you really connect the dots and show the growth in the data, it really clears up the picture. We have that baseline, we have the data now to really show that those that are not in school are not learning. So, we feel confident in addressing this school year, as it's one of our initiatives as a team, but also the implementation of standards-based learning and grading. I think that's going to really help us move forward. We have 13 schools this year fully implementing, and then the remaining schools a year from now. So we're very hopeful that this is going to really show progress in that area. It did, we did have the visit from the team today, working with our secondary schools this week, and so we're continuing to provide that support to our schools and our staff that need it. Again, we are ensuring that daily attendance is taken. It is part of Domain 4 of their evaluation, a teacher's evaluation, and it also is part of state statute. So we are really talking about taking daily attendance, so we have a very clear understanding of who's in school and who's not. Again, we'll present this information at a future board meeting to really show you the data, not only our data, the state data, but also some of the things that we're doing to address it. And then, it's a great honor to make this announcement, but the First Lady, Dr. Jill Biden, and U.S. Secretary, Dr. Miguel Cardona, highlighted 15 school districts, including Santa Fe Public Schools, as a best practice example of using funding for President Biden's American Rescue Plan during a phone conference we had with them on August 25th, which President Merrick mentioned. The call also included Dr. Whitney Oakley, Superintendent of Guilford County Schools in North Carolina, Gene Sperling, Senior Advisor to the President and the American Rescue Plan, and myself. There was only 2 superintendents nationwide that got the invite and got to participate. This is a very special moment for not only Santa Fe Public Schools, but also for the state of New Mexico. The Biden-Harris administration American Rescue Plan Back to School Checklist also announces and makes recommendations as Santa Fe Public School as a model district. So again, it's a great recognition of the hard work and the commitment to excellence by the Santa Fe Public Schools community, the Santa Fe Public Schools School Board, our staff, the students, and everybody that really helped us get this moving forward. So even though I got to participate, it was a team effort, and without that team, it would not be possible. So again, I appreciate and want to thank all of you guys. Yesterday, Santa Fe Public Schools did get to present our work-based learning program and our partnership with the hospitality industry. We were in Kirtland Central yesterday afternoon presenting to the LESC. Really got to expand not only on the partnership that we've developed with our hoteliers, but also what we have in place moving forward. We have 50 interns this school year that we will be working with, not only with the community, state and local government, but also within our own system. As we've mentioned before, it was really part of Deputy Superintendent Wagner's idea to start with interns in our mechanic shop for buses, and it just really grew from there. So again, it was a wonderful opportunity to really explain the robust internship or work-based learning program we have here in Santa Fe. Received a lot of compliments afterwards. One PED staffer reached out to me today to really acknowledge what we're doing and tell me that we're ahead of the curve. So it could be something that the state really gets behind, provide additional funding. And also, we had a recommendation to make it part of the graduation requirements. We are going to possibly move down to the 6th grade level. That's our plans, to really start to gauge interest. I've talked to Board Member Abeta about some of the things he's doing with the Boys and Girls Club, which we think that we can incorporate. So a lot of great things to come. And again, it's just the beginning, but want to thank everybody who's worked on this program as well. And then in response to our educational behavior health assistant, Gail Hansen's concerns at the previous board meeting, first one regarding one-on-ones, this is not a decision that's made at any level outside the IEP team. The IEP team determines the requirements of that individual's IEP, and if it does state that the individual requires a one-on-one, then a one-on-one is placed, but those decisions are made within the IEP team. Regarding technology, the technology department allows and has issued devices to both EAs and EBAs this year This has also been a past practice, but additionally, school sites have a roving cart or a station that has additional laptops that can be used if an EBA, an EA, or somebody else needs one. Regarding pay increases, again, these are always negotiated with the union. It's not something that the board decides or myself. It is in cooperation with the union. The pay raises this year for EBAs and EAs exceeded 7%, which you guys did approve. Right now, we want to make sure that they understand they are not undervalued. We respect and appreciate every single one of them, and we'll continue to work collaboratively with our union to increase pay wages for all employees. So just want to make sure that we understand that's part of negotiations between the district and the union. We'll always inform you guys of the raises, but we'll work with the union to really raise the wages of all employees district-wide. And then regarding the omission of the word religion, this occurred in an old news release that was published. That omission on the template has been corrected, and we will use the correct one moving forward. And then a couple quick ones. The Santa Fe governing body did pass a resolution to support the Santa Fe Public Schools Community Schools Grant. The governing body on August 31st passed a resolution providing a strong support to Santa Fe Public Schools Community Schools Grant to build out, and this is the key word, district-wide community schools model. We are in the process of filling out a 94-page application for a district-wide model and a district-wide funding. So again, that amount will range. It all depends on the reviewer of that grant and what we will receive as part of our application process. And then two very, very quick ones. Santa Fe Public Schools joins a national pilot of iCivic's innovative U.S. history curriculum. We joined Jeffco Public Schools in Colorado, Oklahoma City Public Schools this fall for an innovative national pilot program with iCivics, the country's leader in civic education, to localize and implement a new U.S. history curriculum based on the roadmap to educating for American democracy. The curriculum for 8th grade will bring full American history to life through project-based and embedded approach instruction. I wanted to make sure I made that announcement. So again, I want to thank those teachers and also the district staff that supported it. It's a great pilot project to be a part of, and again, it's also a national pilot project that we can really hang our hat on. And then lastly, just want to make one announcement that the Santa Fe cross-country team will be traveling to Alamosa, Colorado on Saturday, September 10th for a cross-country meet. And that does conclude my announcements this evening.
Great stuff. Thank you very much, Superintendent. Are there any questions on the superintendent's announcements from the board?
Board President Noble.
Secretary Anderson, go ahead.
Thank you. I had just one comment. I wanted to again commend you for your work with the ESSER funding and just note what a great honor it was to have our district represented on a call with the First Lady. I think you deserve a lot of kudos for that, so thank you.
Lots of nodding here. Okay, anything else? All right, we will move on to our action items, beginning with our consent agenda. And August 11th was your first meeting, is that right, Board Member Beta? Okay, great. Want to thank Ruth Williams for all the minutes she does, including this week at our board retreat. So we've got 4 items on the consent agenda, including the minutes from August 11th, the New Mexico Grads Grant, the contracts over $60,000, and budget adjustment requests. Is there anything anyone wants to consider separately or ask a question about? And if not, is there a motion? Go ahead, Vice President.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. On our contracts over $60,000 on the last item, can someone tell me what school site or facility that money is for? It just says add downspout and these other things, but it doesn't say what facility.
Board President, Board Members, Superintendent Chavez, Vice President. This specific adjustment to the contract is for work at Nava Elementary School. The entirety of the contract is district-wide.
Thank you.
Dr. Gonzalez.
I move approval of the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Thank you very much. Dr. Gonzalez with the motion, Secretary Anderson with the second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or otherwise? Okay, we have approved the consent agenda. Thank you very much. Moving on to action item B, Resolution 2022-2023-3, New Mexico DOT, Department of Transportation, Local Government Road Fund. Superintendent.
Thank you, Board President Noble, members of the board. Deputy Superintendent Wagner and Executive Director Romero will take us through the next two items.
Board President, Board Members, Superintendent Chavez. Mr. Romero, our Executive Director of Operations, will walk you through this agreement, the benefits to the district, and our commitment over the two documents, the resolution and the cooperative agreement. So he'll go back to back on the two action items.
Thank you, Ms. Wagner. Board President, Board Members, Superintendent, tonight we bring to you another round of local government road fund that is offered to us by the State of New Mexico Department of Transportation each year. And what that involves is that we apply for a grant and we pick a project and they support it for a percentage. In this particular case, the percentage of the grant that we would benefit from would be $59,860. However, we have to pay for the entire project, which includes a 25% match of $19,953. So again, we'll receive that benefit. It's going to be a paving project just south of the bridge on Botec Road, if you're familiar with that. As we move into that new construction that's happening there, another part of that road will be handled by the new construction, so we'll have a nice brand-new road and to replace all those potholes that you're driving over right now once we get done with this project and with the construction. So that's the idea behind this. The State of New Mexico Department of Transportation does require a resolution along with the agreement, the cooperative agreement that we have before you this evening. So if you have questions, I'm ready to answer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Romero. Questions from the board?
Madam President?
Go ahead, Vice President.
Thank you. I move approval of this resolution.
Thanks very much, Vice President Bose. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Board Member Abeyta. I know what's going on. Any further discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or otherwise? Thank you very much. And as Mr. Romero explained, action item C is related, New Mexico DOT Local Government Road Fund Cooperative Agreement. Mr. Romero, do you want to add anything?
No, it is just, perhaps we could just mention that this is a binding agreement between ourselves and the Department of Transportation for this particular project with the amounts that we discussed earlier.
Thank you.
Madam President?
Vice President.
I move approval of the local government road fund cooperative agreement as outlined.
Second.
Thank you, Vice President Bose with the motion, Board Member Abeyta with the second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the cooperative agreement, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or otherwise? Okay, we've approved action item C. And last but not least, action item D, Santa Fe Federation of School Employees Collective Bargaining Agreement 2022. Superintendent.
Thank you, Board President Noble, members of the board. With us tonight again, taking us through this item, number 3, is Deputy Superintendent Christy Wagner.
Good evening again, Board President, Board members, Superintendent. We have a whole team with us tonight, actually. Behind me, we have the President of our Federation, Mr. David Hogin. He's brought members of his bargaining team here tonight, Alex Vigil, Lawrence Tanous, John Barella. Not here this evening from Santa Fe Public School staff, Marissa Bonifer. She's the Director of Facilities and Maintenance and the direct supervisor of this team. And then also on the bargaining team is Gabe Romero, our Executive Director of Operations. So we worked collaboratively, this group, over the course of really the last school year to update a 2014 CBA, to make sure we modernized our language in that collective bargaining agreement, to make sure that we reflected some terms and conditions that have just changed generally around employee rights. And that was a collaborative, I think, process that took us to summer when we had some time to sit down and look at pay tables and compensation, align ourselves with the directives from the state, and then make some adjustments for employee groups with differing skills and responsibilities in the district. So it's been a lot of work, a heavy lift, a lot of hours spent in the conference room, sometimes via Zoom, and we really appreciate the process. We think we have a good working relationship, and it was enjoyable for me to see this process progress and bring to you a completed agreement tonight. So I think that Mr. Romero just wants to highlight a couple of the pieces of work as for examples, and then we'll stand for questions before you go to action.
Thank you, Ms. Wagner, Board President, Superintendent, and Board members. It is with a great deal of excitement we bring to you this updated CBA that took into account a lot of things that were missing when it was last updated several years back, and that had to do with a lot of language that was in there, such as domestic partners that are now defined in part of the CBA and respected in leaves and other benefits throughout the CBA. So there's changes like that, making sure we have our pronouns right, and also doing a little bit of housekeeping when it comes to any type of grievance or anything like that, making sure that we handle it at the lowest possible level, give people an opportunity to work it out before we get to the higher levels. So those are some great accomplishments with the CBA. I don't know if Dave had any other things before we talk about actually the pay package itself.
No, Board President, Board members, Superintendent Chavez, nice to see you guys. Yeah, Gabe pretty much summed it up. We just went through the contract. There wasn't a lot to add or delete or anything like that. It's a pretty solid contract. We're very happy with it. And yeah, as far as that goes, the pay scale is the one that we really worked on really good. So you got all that.
To talk a little bit about the pay schedule that we worked on, which was another part of this that was entirely a new group of work, was very important. There was some deficiencies we wanted to make sure that we took care of. We didn't want that compaction continuing as we rose the lower pay scales. We accomplished or achieved the $15 per hour minimum wage, but on top of that, we made sure that there's separation as you go down the steps. Each step has an increase per year so that you don't have that type of compaction. Also, we made sure that we had everybody in the correct work group, which we've been working towards for a very long time, and to clearly define those work groups and make sure people are getting compensated fairly for that. And then, of course, the pay raise itself for everybody. There was a minimum requirement of 7.2% thereabouts. In actuality, we're able to accomplish as an average a 10% raise for the crew. So I think they're pretty satisfied with that. But Dave, do you want to add about the pay scale? The pay schedule, I'm sorry?
The pay schedule, yeah, we went through the pay schedule, and there was a few columns that were wrong. We had general maintenance 2, so we just took one of the columns out and put people where they should be as far as trades 1 and trades 2. We have our trades 2 guys, they're electricians and plumbers, which they carry a license to do that job. And, you know, it takes quite a bit to get those jobs. And then on your trades one are certified people as, well, me, I'm a locksmith, so I'm a certified locksmith, and Lawrence is a certified welder. So we fell under these trades as two. We were in general maintenance, which it didn't really reflect our certifications, because I believe we do have trades. And, you know, and then the rest fell, like general maintenance was our warehouse guys and so such and so forth. But we're very happy with the pay raise that we did get, the average 7, you know, we really appreciated that. But, you know, but like Gabe said, it came out closer to a 10. But I wanted to thank Howard. Howard did a lot of work on this, and, you know, him and his team did a lot of work. Thank you, Howard. And yeah, that's pretty much what I have.
Yes, so we will stand for questions, and I wanted to also follow up with David's last comment about Howard being essential to working through this pay schedule. So many thanks to Howard. We'll stand for questions.
Thank you very much, and congratulations and thanks to everyone who was involved in this work. And it's really great to hear that we've got much better pay tables and address some of those compaction issues. And I think that this board, certainly I am committed to seeing us get wages up as much as possible. We really appreciate your service. We know it hasn't been an easy couple of years, and we don't take for granted what you all do. So thank you, and thank you for the work on this agreement, and really appreciate everything you all have done. So, questions from the board?
Madam President?
Go ahead, Secretary Anderson.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a comment to commend you all. We just celebrated Labor Day and celebrated the work of unions, and collective bargaining is such an important part of that. And so thank you all for doing your union representation. It matters not just to the folks in your union, but to people all over. And thank you so much to our staff for doing such a diligent job and such an excellent job. I love that everyone's happy with this agreement. So thank you so much to our staff for doing the hard work of that as well.
Okay, seeing no further questions, I'm going to go ahead and move approval of the Santa Fe Federation of School Employees Collective Bargaining Agreement for 2022.
I'll second.
Thank you, Secretary Anderson. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving this collective bargaining agreement, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or otherwise? Okay, we have approved. Again, thank you all very much. Appreciate you being here and coming to speak with us.
Thank you.
All right, item 10, board discussion and possible action. We don't have anything listed here. Is there anything anyone wants to bring up to put on at this time for a future meeting?
Madam President?
Go ahead, Secretary.
Thank you. I went back and forth about bringing this up. I had a really wonderful conversation with the superintendent and took note of all of the comments during public forum tonight. I want to acknowledge my place. I am the newest person to Santa Fe that sits on the board. I am not from Santa Fe, but I am indigenous. I'm a member of the Choctaw Nation. I'm a citizen of the Choctaw Nation, whose family was removed from Mississippi on the Trail of Tears to Oklahoma, and still live with the intergenerational trauma that comes with that. My child participated in the Fiesta Council when they were a pre-K student, which I found out from the Washington Post, of all places, which had done a story on it. And I also grew up in Oklahoma, where they did mock land runs every year, and there was a parade and a celebration of what's called 89ers Day, which is when white settlers took land that was in the treaty rights of tribes in Oklahoma. And my nation was first colonized by the Spanish, then by the English, then by the French, and ultimately by the United States government when they lost their land. I want to celebrate all of the cultures of Santa Fe, not just the tri-cultures, but all of the cultures that exist, particularly within Santa Fe Public School. But I do not support celebrating conquest when the word conquest is in the name of the people who are visiting and, in a sense, educating our children. It is harmful to my children, to other Native children, to children who are not Native, who are absorbing the narrative. I know that in 2018, the board adopted the recommendation of the Equity and Diversity Committee. At that time, I did not sit on the Equity and Diversity Committee, but I know that when I joined, I was one of 2 Indigenous members of the Equity and Diversity Committee, the other being the Director of Native American Student Services. I would like to ask that at a future meeting, we discuss revisiting that resolution and resubmitting it to the Equity and Diversity Committee. And I would also like to ask that a valiant effort be made to include more Indigenous folks on that committee to have their voices heard as part of a resolution. I think I have talked with other Indigenous members of the community who kept their students home today because it is difficult, even in an opt-out situation, to hear about all the fun that people had, about the celebration that happened, particularly at the school. I think we have wonderful new social studies standards that are coming down the pike. I think we have wonderful social studies teachers now and elementary and secondary teachers who are doing an excellent job of providing a balanced view of history. I just don't feel that having the Fiesta Council coming to the schools is part of that. I feel that it's harmful to students, and I would like for us to revisit that without pushing any kind of, I don't want the board to have a say in curriculum, but I think this might fall outside of that in a way, and I would like for us to revisit pushing it back to the Equity and Diversity Committee and talking about it as a board.
Thank you. So for our next or a meeting of your choosing, will you work with the superintendent to get the wording right for what you'd like on board discussion and possible action? And we'll bring that. Thank you. Any other items for board discussion and possible action? Okay, we'll move on to advanced planning. Superintendent, any changes? Okay, it looks like we don't need a meeting next week on the 15th. We'll go ahead and take off that tentative study session on the 15th. The CRC, as Vice President Bozé mentioned, will be meeting next week on the 14th, and then we will be back together as a board on the 22nd. As I mentioned at our board retreat, the plan is to have a presentation and discussion at that time of our the proposed framework for a reimagining process to go the next 12 or 18 months. And again, it is my great hope that we can really embrace this process, do so without fear and with great creativity, because we have some structural issues and some serious inequities in this district that I believe we can, and we have a window of opportunity to solve these problems. So hopefully we kick that off and it goes well. It won't be perfect. It could be really good, but it won't be perfect. So, and Superintendent, you of course will let us know if we need an executive session on the 22nd. Anything else on advanced planning? All right. Seeing nothing, I will say we are adjourned. Thank you all very much for being here, for tuning in. If anybody out there in TV land is listening, and for all the work that you do being a part of the Santa Fe Public Schools.